Imagine being told where you can live, who you can marry, what job you can do, and even where you can walk, based entirely on your skin color. This wasn't centuries ago. This was South Africa, as recently as the 1990s. Apartheid, an Afrikaans word meaning apartness, was one of the most brutal and institutionalized forms of racial segregation in modern history. But apartheid wasn't just a set of laws. It was a system of fear, control, and division that infected every part of life. From forced removals to pass books, from classroom indoctrination to mass imprisonment, apartheid shaped generations. But South Africa also became a symbol of hope, a place where courage, resistance, and sacrifice eventually overcame oppression. Today, we'll explore the rise and fall of apartheid, the freedom struggle, and the lives of two heroes who shaped the movement, Nelson Mandela and Steve Biko. Apartheid didn't appear overnight. It was the climax of over 300 years of colonization. The Dutch were the first European settlers in South Africa, arriving in 1652. Later, the British took over. Both colonial powers viewed native Africans as inferior and built systems to exploit their labor. By the early 20th century, white settlers, though only 20% of the population, controlled the vast majority of the land and wealth. In 1913, the Natives Land Act was passed. It gave black South Africans just 7% of the land and made it illegal for them to buy or rent property outside those areas. When South Africa gained independence from Britain in 1948, the Afrikaner-led National Party came to power. They didn't just continue the segregation, they formalized and expanded it into what became known as apartheid. The idea was simple but cruel. Keep South Africa racially divided so that the white minority could remain in control economically, politically, and socially. Under apartheid, every South African was classified by race: white, black, colored, mixed race, or Indian. This classification wasn't just about labels. It determined where you lived, worked, studied, and even where you were buried. The Population Registration Act, 1950, made racial classification mandatory. The Group Areas Act, 1950, dictated where people of each race could live. Pass laws required black people to carry a passbook at all times. If caught without it, they could be arrested or deported to homelands. The Bantu Education Act created a separate and deliberately inferior education system for black children, designed to prepare them only for low-wage labor. The government even banned interracial marriage and sexual relationships between races. Every part of life was legislated to keep races apart and white people on top. In cities, entire black neighborhoods were bulldozed. One of the most infamous examples was District 6 in Cape Town, where over 60,000 people were forcibly removed and their homes destroyed. In response to this growing oppression, the African National Congress, ANC, founded in 1912, began organizing peaceful protests. They were joined by groups like the South African Indian Congress, the Pan-Africanist Congress, PAS, and trade unions. In 1952, the Defiance Campaign encouraged people to break apartheid laws peacefully. Thousands volunteered to get arrested by entering whites-only areas without permits. In 1955, resistance leaders came together to adopt the Freedom Charter, which declared, "South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white." But peaceful resistance was met with violence. In 1960, in the township of Sharpeville, police opened fire on 7,000 unarmed protesters opposing past laws. 69 people were killed, many shot in the back. The Sharpeville massacre shocked the world. The government responded by banning the ANC and other anti-apartheid groups. From this point, many activists decided that peaceful protests were no longer enough. Nelson Mandela, a young lawyer and rising leader in the ANC, initially believed in nonviolent resistance. But after Sharpeville, Mandela co-founded Umkhonto we Sizwe, the ANC's armed wing, which means Spear of the Nation. Mandela was arrested in 1962 and sentenced to life in prison for sabotage and conspiracy against the government. He would spend 27 years behind bars, most of it on Robben Island. Mandela's imprisonment didn't weaken the movement. It strengthened it. He became a symbol of resistance, not just in South Africa, but globally. People chanted "Free Mandela" at protests from London to New York. Inside the country, resistance continued. Underground cells operated secretly. Exiled activists raised awareness abroad, and ordinary South Africans, students, workers, teachers, kept the flame of resistance alive. While Mandela was behind bars, a new leader emerged, Steve Biko. Biko founded the Black Consciousness movement in the late 1960s. His philosophy was empowering. Before Black South Africans could fight apartheid politically, they had to believe in their own worth. Biko said, "The most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed." He challenged the inferiority taught by apartheid. He inspired a cultural revival, Black pride in language, history, dress, and identity. In 1977, Biko was arrested and beaten to death by police while in custody. The government claimed he died during a hunger strike, but evidence showed he suffered massive head injuries. His death caused international outrage and cemented him as a martyr for the cause of freedom. In 1976, the apartheid government announced that Afrikaans, the fifth language of the white rulers, would be the medium of instruction in Black schools. The response? A student-led uprising in Soweto. On June 16, 1976, thousands of students marched in protest. Police opened fire. Hundreds were killed, including 13-year-old Hector Peterson, whose photograph, carried in the arms of a fellow student, shocked the world. The Soweto uprising marked a turning point. Youth were now at the center of resistance. The regime tried to suppress the protests, but unrest spread across the country. Meanwhile, global solidarity was growing. Countries imposed economic sanctions, sports and cultural boycotts, and arms embargoes. South Africa was increasingly isolated. By the late 1980s, apartheid was unsustainable. The economy was collapsing, protests were intensifying, and the world was watching. In 1989, F.W. de Klerk became president. In a bold move, he began dismantling apartheid. In 1990, Nelson Mandela was released from prison. In the following years, political bans were lifted, exiles returned, and negotiations began. It wasn't easy. Talks were tense. Violence flared up. But eventually, the promise of freedom prevailed. On April 27, 1994, South Africa held its first democratic elections. Millions queued, Black, white, colored, Indian, to vote for the first time together. The ANC won in a landslide. Nelson Mandela became South Africa's first Black president. The moment was historic, not just for South Africa but for the world. Mandela's inauguration was not a victory of revenge, but of reconciliation. Apartheid was one of the darkest chapters in modern history, a regime of control, cruelty, and calculated oppression. But it was also a story of resilience, unity, and unbreakable hope. From the burning streets of Soweto to the cold cells of Robben Island, from the voice of Steve Biko to the vision of Nelson Mandela, South Africans rose against injustice and changed the world. Mandela once said, "I have walked that long road to freedom. I can only rest for a moment, for with freedom comes responsibilities." The fall of apartheid wasn't the end. It was a beginning, a reminder that freedom must be protected, justice must be pursued, and that courage, no matter how quiet, can change the world.